Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Bald Picture. My name's Rhys and I'm hosting this week's episode. Today I'm tasking my illustrious panellists with who should be the next James Bond after Daniel Craig, of course. So, without further ado, let's get in and meet our panel. I'm inspired by the first panelist's introduction from last episode. So, Adam, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Just wonderful, thanks.
Thank you.
Like I said, I'm inspired by your introduction from last week, but to be honest with you, Adam, I don't care about current affairs. So
fair enough.
I thought something that you thought last time that maybe we should talk about things that are happening that are relevant to what we talk about. But I thought perhaps maybe I would just ask you guys how you are because we never actually talk about ourselves. So Adam, how are things?
They're great on the up. I just got a new job.
Yes,
Can't go into
I see. I've got my
specifics.
notes here. I've got my notes here that you have got a new job and you start on Monday. Is that right?
No, that's Monday, the following Monday. But
Following
yes.
Monday. And so you're now leaving your job at my notes here say here unnamed restaurant chain. Are you excited?
Unnamed restaurant chain. Yeah, I'm very excited to leave behind the world of hospitality. I mean, for good. I think even if I had to change job again, I don't think I'd go back. I think that's a period everyone has, and I think you get over it and you're away. I don't think you go back.
I think it's the same for almost everyone when they're certainly in their teenage years going through uni and that they either work in hospitality or in retail and they never look back. So I'm glad you got out.
Thank you.
Next, we've got this week's People Champ, Stewart. How are you?
I am good. I'm still standing. Here we go. It's getting late. Have you seen my mates? The audience know what they want, and it's more Elton John. And so do I. I want more Elton John. How are you, Rhys? How you doing with the new streamlined look?
Yeah. So for everyone wondering, I shaved my hair off, and that might not seem like that big a deal, but my hair actually was down to my shoulders. This is what happens during lockdown. My hair got down to my shoulders. My hairdresser has moved to New Zealand, so I have nowhere to cut my hair. So I thought, well, I'll just shave it off, and it's so freeing. So that's how I feel, Stuart. Well done on winning. Thanks. Well done on winning the People's Champ and obviously the big picture from last week. How do you think you'll do this week?
Did I win last week? I don't think I did.
No, you did. You definitely did.
It's Lewis that won.
I won. Lewis that won.
Oh, it's fucking wild. The disrespect.
Gee. Just let them.
Lewis was Greece, wasn't it? Alright, so Stuart, how did you feel about winning the big picture last week and also People's Champ?
This is you're doing the other bald person dirty in this podcast. And Rhys, I know you're new to it, but baldies stick together. All right,
yes,
that's it. We use all that money that we save on shampoo, and we put it towards our friends.
Right. Okay. Well, bearing that in mind, our next panelist is Shettleston's resident James Bond, Lewis. Lewis, I'm sorry for doing you dirty. You won last week, rightfully so, with an excellent choice of Greece. So my question is, are you going to win this week?
You know what? I think I've made a strong choice. I think the fans will be the true guide on who wins this week.
Oh, very interesting. Lewis, you are probably Lewis, you are definitely the manliest one out of all of us here. And this is probably the manliest kind of thing we've talked about on the podcast. So does that make you very excited? Are your testosterone levels at an all-time high?
You know what, Rhys? You ask that question and you make those statements. And while I do find myself probably the most testosterone-laden individual in this group, I think you'll be surprised with some of the takes I'm going to come forth with this episode.
That's right, guys. Lewis's pitch, a female James Bond. Right, moving on to our
fucking spoiler alert.
Our least voted for member, but the most loved. It's Jack. Jack, how are you?
Aye, I'm no bad, my friend. I'm no bad. How are you?
Just dandy, thanks. And how's your other podcast going?
Aye, very well, very well. I'm doing things over there. Things are happening. We were part of a press release call for a wrestling company, All Elite Wrestling. We're part of the Revolution pay-per-view press call that happened last week. That was very good. I'm the host of a feature show that's coming out next week. It's all happening over there. Aye.
You're a busy man. You still find time to work-related call me sometimes, so that's always good.
We call that in the business community benefits.
Right, wonderful. So, like I said, we've got an exciting episode ahead today, and as mentioned, we're tackling the James Bond franchise. The first James Bond film came out in 1963, and it was an interesting time in society. At this point in time, there was a large shift in society as you saw men working less in industries like shipbuilding and mining and more mundane office jobs. Likewise, women were increasingly getting jobs and the same jobs as these men who have been taken out of the hard-working, manly style jobs. So, the release of James Bond served as an outlet for a lot of these men. And like I mentioned earlier, Lewis, you're the manliest panelist here. So, do you think that this socio-cultural shift led to the success of James Bond? And if so, seeing as how society has progressed so much, why is it still so successful?
I think, well, obviously the first book published in 1953, and then as you said there, the movie was released not long far after. But at the time, it almost makes sense. I think men at that period probably felt a bit of fragility, a bit of loss of power. And it makes sense that you can kind of see, like, oh man, that's the kind of life I wish I had back then. And even now, I think it's more of a legacy more than an actual relation to the character. It's more of just like, oh wow, Bond is such a name, and so it has a kind of notoriety to it. It's almost like the character itself becomes a box office draw and not who's playing them, which is ironic considering the topic of today's podcast. But I think then it makes sense. But now, and we'll get into it later on, I don't think Bond is a good character. I think it's based on poorly aged concepts of manliness, and I can't wait for right wing Twitter to find this podcast.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a good part of this podcast today is that the fact that I'm hosting, so I don't get to share my views on James Bond as a character. So I'll come to you, Stewart. Stewart, I've recently just finished watching the show Archer, which is a kind of parody of James Bond. Well, not James Bond necessarily, but more so like spy genre. But that being said, it is a parody, and I can't actually think of the top of my head of any other top tier spy movies. So I'm wondering if you could help me in figuring out why James Bond has been the most successful out of all the spy movies.
I think it's just. I think obviously, like, it kind of exploded at the right time. Like you said about the kind of legacy of it, the era it started in. You're coming off of the Second World War, and it became public knowledge, like the extent to which intelligence had to operate, like obviously to deal with the Nazis and the likes of the Enigma Code and solving those kind of problems. Espionage became this huge big thing that never went away because people were suddenly aware of it. So I think they kind of capitalized on that. I think it's basically just a case of, like, it was the first to do it. It was quite brave of the time to show the extents to which spies have to go to. It was certainly, it never really been seen before. So I think, like, obviously the longevity of it is easy to parody. There's so much there because there's with the length of time it's been around, there's all these tropes. So it's easy to pick apart. Obviously, everyone knows James Bond. It's got cars. It's got guns, girls, global domination. It's not hard to kind of describe a Bond film to somebody who's not seen it, even if you haven't seen many yourself.
Well, it's interesting because I think actually, I mean, you said it's the first of its kind, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, the most popular genre of film in the 1950s was espionage. So it's curious that this one has withstood time itself. So Jack, I'm just wondering, maybe what is it that you like about James Bond films, and maybe that would clarify why it's been so successful.
I think for me, it's always been the gadgety side of it. I like when he's going into his cars and he just presses a wee buttons here. There's something, I don't know. There's something about it. It's proper like dad enjoyment of why you would like James Bond. Just like, oh, you press a button in the car and you could like big Gatling guns on the side, just shooting your enemies and whatnot. There's a lot of like out there stuff that I like with James Bond movies. Maybe not the whole espionage side of it, but that kind of the gadgety aspect of it. You can press a button and you're shooting rocket launchers, you can make your car fly or whatever you want to do. I don't know, but it's a lot of the stuff that's probably more out there is why I like the James Bond franchise.
Well, if you like the sci-fi side of it, Jack, I've got a show for you. It's called Inspector Gadget. That'll really tickle your head.
You know what? I've actually never heard of it before. You know, that's something I'll need to check out.
I feel like you're joking, and I'm going to take that as a joke, so I'm just going to move on.
Don't worry.
Adam, Lewis had said earlier that maybe people talk about who the next James Bond is, and that's certainly what we're going to get into today. And he alluded to the fact that maybe that's more exciting than the actual movies themselves. First off, Adam, are you a fan of the James Bond franchise?
Yeah, I'd say I am. It's funny because the only Bond film I watched when I was younger, we had it on DVD, was Die Another Day, which I watched a lot, and I actually enjoyed because I was a wee guy. And then as I got older, I look back and I'm like, that wasn't the best, but it did have, and Jack kind of alluded to it, the gadget side to it, and that as a wee guy I found really interesting. And I still do enjoy that. I think to kind of maybe quickly jump back to why it's so popular. I think I was surprised no one touched on it precisely, but it's got such an element of fantasy to it, with not just the gadgets but the villains and things like that, which is probably what sets it apart from other espionage films, which have a more sort of serious tone. We're covering a spy and what he's doing behind the scenes, but also look at that kind of outlandish villains, Dr. No, Goldfinger, these things that set it apart, so give it a bit of sort of Hollywood to it. In terms of who's the next James Bond going to be, and the kind of hype around that, it's interesting. I don't remember when Daniel Craig was announced the next year, but I don't remember there being that much build up beforehand. I think it's as we always say in the show, it's kind of a product of the era we're in now, the social media age of this discussion and the big the arguments you get into now, that it's become such a hot topic. And I think that if we go back to when Daniel Craig was announced, or even just before Daniel Craig was announced, I don't remember there being big blogs and stuff talking about the next James Bond and big arguments about who it should be and who it shouldn't be. I just remember it being, oh, well, Daniel Craig's the next James Bond, deal with it. Instead, we've had this big build-up of who's going to be.
That's interesting. I seem to remember when Daniel Craig was announced that it kind of sparked controversy, and people were like, I think it should have been this guy, I think it should have been that guy. But I actually perhaps would agree that maybe I didn't see a huge conversation in who it should be prior to it being announced for Daniel Craig. What do you think, Lewis?
I think you're both wrong, and I think there was a genuine, thorough debate on who should play a Bond when they announced they were going to be bringing him back. And I distinctly remember many a name being considered, many a debate happening on your crappy daytime TV show. But I don't know, maybe I could be wrong too. Maybe this is just my absent my memory because it's something I cared about back then. But I distinctly remember being a very drawn out process of who was going to be Bond, and a bunch of people putting their name forward for it. Especially this would have been 2004, 2005.
I think it was about 2004. I think one of the things was that with Bond at that time as well, the thing that was a bit not concerning, but was that he didn't sign on to do many to begin with, and his age at that time as well. Obviously, James Bond is kind of a bit older now, that's because of who Daniel Craig is, but that was always a worry at that time as well, and that was something that caused a bit of controversy. Oh, you want a bit of longevity to it because you didn't know how long it was going to go.
And it'd been a while since the last film, and like this is obviously, you know, a legacy character that people deeply, deeply cared about. And the success of Lord of the Rings and definitely kind of led to certain people being considered for it. And you know, I distinctly remember many debate. Basically, that's my point. Is like I think as much as the debate is now, I think it's just being, you know, emphasized because of things like social media and a bunch of online articles that more people can talk about it. But definitely back then there was some debate, and I don't know, maybe Stewart agrees or disagrees or hates me for it.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. There was tons. I remember, like you said, it was probably it was the early 2000s. There was an actual headline I remember called, it was probably The Sun or something like that, some shit show of a journalist tabloid, but it was No Blonde Bonds, and there was actual such an uproar about the fact that Bond could be blonde. Like there was so much. It's weird to think nowadays like that people were so against just James Bond having blonde hair. Like people were asking would he dye his hair and all this stuff. But even you go back to the 60s, obviously when like Sean Connery was probably one of the biggest actors in the world due to James Bond, and when he decided that he wasn't doing it, I remember there was a James Bond documentary in like British tabloid journalism. Again, this was kind of like the start of celebrity gossip, where like, are they going to cancel it? There's rumours of like they'll get another actor. Who would they get? So I think perhaps Bond was one of the leading examples of celebrity gossip, which is strange.
It's actually while we've been having this conversation, I was like, I want to double check that I'm right before I just come off with this random rant that there's definitely debate. The original director, original choice was actually Henry Cavill back in 2005, but quote was deemed too young to portray Bond. So there you go. Other people were considered, even the directors want to go somewhere else.
So no blondes, and they have to be of a certain age. I know some of the pictures aren't going to go down well then.
Enter Robbie Williams, everybody. Yeah. Enter Robbie Williams.
If we could take this podcast once we finish recording it and like throw it back to 2003, I would love to see the reaction.
I don't think that's actually possible, Lewis, but you can work on that. Huge part of the James Bond franchise, guys, is the songs. So I want to hear everyone's suggestions. And look, Jack, I, grind on you a lot, and I tell you, Jack, your music taste sucks. So I'm coming to you here with an apology. If you can pick a good James Bond song, so which one is the best?
So I'm picking out of every James Bond song. I'm not picking for a new one. I'm picking out of what is.
No. What's your favourite one?
If I had to, there's two. It's either Writings on the Wall by Sam Smith or A View to Kill by Duran Duran.
Those answers are acceptable.
I did it.
Duran. What you had to go with the Sam Smith, but he brought it back with Duran Duran.
Sam Smith's one is good. I'll give you that as well, Jack. Right, Stuart, you've piped up. What's your favourite James Bond song?
I'd probably say Skyfall by Adele. This song, I love it. What a song, what a voice. I mean, the lyrics might not be 100%, but I don't care because this is a song I would gladly listen. I think I listen to this at least once a month. It's like classic and new Bond all roped into one. I bloody love this song, and I don't think there's a lot that can hold a candle to it.
Yeah, I would say that that is probably my favourite as well. So that is an excellent choice, Jack. You're back to being sucky. So,
what
Adam,
about Peter Gabriel, Big
music
Night?
Fan? What about Fuck Off?
Sorry, it was asking me next. Yeah. We Have All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong. That's a underrated one because it's in the 60s, but I'm a big Louis Armstrong fan, so I would say it's maybe a bit different. I think you put it to the Bond themes now.
Fucking knew you were going to pick that one.
But
If all
I
the
like it.
songs
It's
I would
different.
have thought of that you would have picked, 100% certainty I would have got that guess right. Not even like a shadow of doubt. I'd be willing to bet my life savings on that.
Well, it's done now, so you missed
Okay
a
then, Lewis. I get you're coming up with all these things like after they've happened. It's just not possible, Lewis. So let me
I'm
hear
Nostradamus.
what your favourite song is.
You Know My Name by Chris Cornell. That's what I thought.
What?
Fuck you all.
That's I mean, there's not really much I can say in that one. I don't even know if I've heard it, but I'll take your word for it being a good song. I wouldn't take Jack's word for a song being good, but I'll take your word for it.
Come on.
I feel like it's a good
Before we
song,
go-
maybe not necessarily a good Bond song. Like,
No,
I really
it's-
like it.
it's- Yeah.
I think the problem I have is the intro, like with all the kind of, it's like something a guy made an iMovie at the last minute. Like, it's so weird, like
Yeah.
all the cutouts of, I get what they were going for, but I'm like, maybe not. But the song's good.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Bond, and it's my sort of genre of music, so it kind of fitted for me. And at the time, like with Casino Royale, I think it just kind of worked for my particular taste, so that's why it's my favorite. Is it the best? Absolutely not, and I can concede to that. But no, that's my pick because it's a good enough song, and I think by itself it'd probably be better. In fact, it's attached to Bond. I think it gets a bit of a bad rap.
Lewis, you mentioned Casino Royale there, and most of our viewers at home, listeners at home, said that their favourite Bond film was Casino Royale, with the exception of a couple who, as I scroll through my notes, said, go with, Die Another Day, or Quantum of Solace, or Skyfall. So we've got a wee bit of a variety in options here. But Lewis, what's your favourite Bond film?
So the first Bond film I ever watched was Tomorrow Never Dies, which probably isn't the best one to build your Bond experience off of. My favorite Bond film, on the other hand, is in fact also Casino Royale because I have no original takes.
I feel like this is going to be a common theme here, but I'll just go around the group. Jack, favourite Bond film?
Yeah, mine is Casino Royale as well. Also, I know I said at the start, like what I liked at the James Bond franchise when I was younger was about the kind of the gadgety side of things and what they were doing. But I like this one the best. I've got older and able to appreciate how kind of stripped all that back, and it kind of brought a grittier, darker side to the movies, which I probably was able to relate to a bit more when I was older. So I think that's why I enjoy that the best.
Excellent insight, Jack. Adam, favourite Bond film?
Maybe I'd lean more towards Skyfall, the Casino Royale. But I think that's probably from first watching, because I was obviously a wee bit older when Skyfall came out, and I think because I appreciated that more in the cinema on the first watch. It maybe gets a bit more. It's like slightly higher than Casino Royale on the list. To give some older ones a bit of credit, I do like The Man with the Golden Gun and License to Kill. I think they're quite good. But
do you think, Adam, that perhaps the reason that everyone prefers like Skyfall and Casino Royale is because they are newer, the budget's obviously way higher, the production's better, and it's just our generation's versions, or do you think that they just generally are better than the older films?
I think they probably are better. I think that to enjoy a lot of the older films now, you have to have the kind of attitude of this is an older film. So there's maybe a sense of like novelty or nostalgia to it when you watch it now. I think you can understand why they were popular at the time. I think they were like ahead of their time, but not 20 years ahead of their time to now. So they don't necessarily stand up the test in a technological sense. But I just think that you're right. They're better films now, and to appreciate the ones, you have to have a kind of novelty. You have to appreciate the novelty of them, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely innovative for the 60s and obviously every decade thereafter. Stuart, I'll finish with you. Favourite Bond film?
It's got to be Skyfall, not just because of the song. I do like Adam said, I like some of the older ones. I like GoldenEye. I've got quite a special place in my heart from Russia with Love, but Skyfall, and to a lesser extent, I think it kind of started with Casino Royale. It's less about the tropes of Bond and more about like kind of a bit more introspective. I think I really, really, really like Casino Royale, but every time I watch it, which is every week on ITV2 when it's on, it just gets a bit. Those last 40 minutes, I feel like I'm like, all right, like the drags. I feel like the movie could have cut them out a bit more. But any movie that can make like an hour and a half of playing poker exciting is a good film. But Skyfall just it kind of improves that Bond formula a lot. I think it adds a more human touch to it. It's a more personal movie, which is quite surprising. But it deals with some big issues. And also, like you said about the production values, like it is just shot like beautifully. There's great landscape shots, and there's a scene where Bond's fighting an assassin, and it's all silhouettes, so you don't actually know who's got the upper hand. And I think if you did that in any other film, maybe it wouldn't work as well. But I think it just gives that film a bit more flair. So I'd say Skyfall is my favourite. I could probably talk about just that for the whole episode.
Well, we don't have that kind of time because we're going on to the pitches. So, like I said earlier on in the episode, I tasked the boys with coming up with who should be the next James Bond after Daniel Craig. And because you finished there, Stuart, I will let you go first. So please tell me, who should be the next James Bond?
Oh, thank you. So I have a bit of a confession to make. Before I make my pitch, I have to apologise, first of all, to Jack, because he was also thinking of this actor. And unfortunately, I was able to put a claim in first. However, Jack, I'm sorry again. I guess great minds think alike, because my pick for the next Bond is Tom Holland. I think we've had enough old Bonds. I think it's time to go deep into the roots, into what makes.
No.
I'm sorry, Jack. I'm sorry. I guess great minds think alike.
Oh, I want to cry.
Why?
No comment. I'll address it in my fucking pitch. Jesus.
No. Tell me. I don't want to go further.
Tell us, Jack.
Please tell me.
Because I submitted two folk to Rhys about who I wanted to pitch as the next James Bond. One was Tom Hiddleston, or who I have now went for, and I was told,
is that why you sent me those Tom Hiddleston gifts?
Oh,
I thought you were just. That makes a lot of sense.
So then Rhys was like, somebody's already taken that. So like, that's fine, I'll go with my other one. But I knew only one person submitted that time, so I went and messaged Stewart and called him a dirty see you next Tuesday. And
he sent me all these Tom Hiddleston gifts. I was like, why is he sending me these? So I just kind of played along, and I was like, well, the good news is, Jack, is that I knew what you were on about, and my pick is Tom Hiddleston.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I was like starting to get a Word document and start preparing notes. Right, I'm actually going to go for Tom Hiddleston right here.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. This was a dirty.
Stuart and I
play.
came up with this plot about a week and a half ago.
Very good. Well done, boys. Well done. Round of applause. Well done.
Rhys is the true Bond villain of this episode. So
Right,
my actual pitch is controversial, and I laid all my cards on the table and asked Rhys if this pitch was okay to make, and he said, Stuart, I don't give a fuck. So here it is. Now, I like the Bond movies. They can be a bit of fun action, and sometimes you get some really good ones. But for me, the majority of them are pretty much the same. It's always one guy saving the world, and he's the best agent in MI5, and he can do anything. I've had enough of that. To me, that's fine for a couple of films, but not for a 50-year-old franchise. I've had enough. It's time to mix things up a bit, which is why from now on there will be two 007 agents. One played by Tom Hiddleston. I'm sorry, Jack. Great minds think alike. And one is played by Natalie Emanuel. So these two 007 agents are part of a unit. with one being the agent in the field and the other one being the backup support agent. So the one out in the field will be called James or Jane Bond, and the other will be 007. So they share the titles depending on the respective roles. Like I said, I'm sick of having a Bond that's absolutely amazing at everything, and he's a lone wolf, which is why these two agents will have different skill sets. Tom Hiddleston, he's an infiltrator. He's like the smooth-talking Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan, able to go undercover. He deals with the more spy/espionage missions, while Natalie Emanuel will be his combat backup. And when she's in the field, she's the heavy-duty tactical agent, so her strengths are weapons and combat expertise. So she deals with the big action missions like exfiltrations, etc. While Tom Hiddleston usually takes like a sniper spotter role and provides backup from a distance. So these guys have to work together. They're a unit, and it mixes up the formula by having for both of them to sometimes improvise or deal with one another out in the field. So they have each other's back, but before you ask, and I feel very strongly about this, they will never be romantically linked at all. They're agents and they won't always get on, but they won't have that kind of relationship. They can have relationships with other characters, but we're never with each other. I chose these two because I feel they're a great fit for the roles. Tom Hiddleston's a very suave actor. He's no stranger to action, such as the Marvel movies, but he also was the leading man in a series called The Night Manager, and he is fantastic in it, absolutely worth a watch. He has to go undercover for the majority of that, and he's so good in that. I think he has this kind of like gravitas to him, and he can play really shrewd, intelligent characters, which is why I gave him the role he did. Natalie Emanuel is also no stranger to action. She's in the Fast and Furious movies, but she also plays very intelligent characters as well, one of which was in Game of Thrones, and she played her as a really wise, beyond her years character. So she does have that ability to play someone with a good mentality. And they're both British, which is a must. It's probably a bit controversial, but I didn't want to put somebody in as Bond to have all the same tropes as before. I want to finally mix it up, and I couldn't decide between either of these people, so I just went with both.
Stuart, what a wonderful and, as always, wonderfully complex pitch. So I will, first of all, say, I'm very intrigued and I enjoyed it. And I will put it up to Adam, see what he has to say.
I liked it. I personally enjoyed the fact that you're going somewhere different with it, Stuart. But my question is, we are pitching next Bond, so in the idea of the fact that, let's say, in this alternate reality, we're involved in making Bond, do you think this would be received as well? Do you think this would do as well as other Bond films? Or do you think if it didn't do as well, do you think it's something they would continue with, or do you think they would just go back to form?
I hope not. I feel like they always go back to formula, and they don't have to. I feel like they don't push it enough. I feel like there is potential there because, like, James Bond's not a character; it's a title. That's because we've already established that several actors have shared this title, and it's an agent calling card that you get. So I'd hope it's well received because you always see in the run up to a new Bond, is this Bond going to be female? Is this Bond going to be black? And I feel like in order to just finally give them the shove that they need, something like this is a good fit because it doesn't anger the Bond purists. And also, I'm all for equality and everyone having a good chance at the role, but I kind of agree with some people that think, they shouldn't just make Bond a woman when they can make another character, and I understand that because if you just make somebody Bond, it's still Bond. You're still going to have all those same tropes, and I want rid of all that. I just want a clean slate, build something new. The franchise has had Bond for 50 years. I think it is time for something different, and I'd hope it'd be well received because it is different and not much of the same old thing.
Stuart, well, I think that you may hope it would be well received. I can't imagine the loyal James Bond supporters receiving it well. That being said, I think it's an intriguing pitch, and I think it would be a more entertaining film if you had it like that. Is anyone else got anything to say on it?
All I'll say is that I think that Tom Hiddleston's a fantastic choice, Stuart. Well done.
You're very welcome, Jack, and I'm sorry again.
My only sort of like, I don't know, maybe lower question is that a 00 is just a 00 agent. It's a classification. Obviously, James Bond is a nickname. It's a moniker. It's just given to him as 007. Maybe this is me trying to like improve the pitch for my choice to vote on it if I do decide to vote on this pitch. But I feel like what could have been better would be if you're wanting to move on from Bond, and fuck knows I want to too, because I'm fucking sick of this cunt. Excuse my language. Would it make
no hard
more
Cs.
sense then? If Tom Hiddleston is just playing 007 James Bond, and Emanuel plays a sort of understudy, a new 00, a new sort of introduction to a new character to then continue on with the Bond moniker and just change it to Jeanette Bond or Gillian Bond or whatever fucking name they want.
Kind of like Men in Black 4. Good idea, Lewis.
Well, that is I've never seen Men in Black 4 because it's an awful film. I don't really care that much about it. But
No, Men in Black 4 is class.
Given good writing and good character division, and like especially with a character like this, which need to be handled with such care, that would be my position to you, whether you prefer what I've spun on it or whether you're like, nope, I'm keeping it my own, and you have a shit take on this.
It was that this was the biggest part for me. Once I decided, right, I'm having these two actors. I did have the whole, do I make them James Bond? Is it going to be, I actually thought like this was a shit idea. Like one of them's 003 and one of them's 004. Like they both made 007. I couldn't really think of a really good way to do it. So it was the easiest way for me to just make Tom Hiddleston, have him the moniker of James Bond. But to me, they both encapsulate the character because they're both at the same level. Like, whilst Tom Hiddleston is older because there's about 10 years difference between them, he excels at what he excels at. So when he is doing a mission that he is capable of fronting, he calls the shots. However, when Natalie Emanuel is on her missions, she's the one calling the shots and he's the one providing backup. So they do operate at that same level. So it's not a case of one is above the other. It was simply just a case of you've got their skill set, we'll play to that advantage because it's your mission and you know how best to approach it. So it wasn't a case of like one's not really James Bond. Whoever's fronting the mission will be that James Bond character, but I couldn't think of a really good way to do it other than, I think this is the best I could come up with. It's not ideal. It probably would get everyone's, hackles up. I think people are too easy to kind of judge. If I was releasing this information on Twitter today, these are the Bonds, I would be very prepared to deal with the backlash. And I feel like these two actors are more than capable of showing everybody that they can be Bond. Because like I said, the character's 50 years, they're progressing at such a rate that I don't think any meaningful is going to change. Any meaningful is going to happen unless this new Bond is a radical change. So that's what I wanted to go with. I wanted to go with someone radical.
Sure, do you know what would be interesting? And I think potentially here what you could do is if you take your pitch and mix it in with what Lewis has said, and then you have kind of like a James Bond being Tom Hiddleston, and then there's Natalie Emanuel, and she's trying to become the next big pet James Bond, but next big spy, and everyone, the spy agency is like, nah, what? The best spy can't be a woman. Women can't be spies. And then she works her way up to the top and becomes the best. And it would just be like a fuck you to everyone on Twitter that says that James Bond can't be a woman. But it's not my pitch. And for that reason, I will move on to Jack, because Jack, Tom Holland is now available. Who is the next James Bond?
I have not went for Tom Holland. I have quickly deleted my notes for Tom Hiddleston. The man that I believe should be the next James Bond is none other than the leading man from the Bodyguard TV series, Richard Madden.
Ooh.
I've picked this because one, I couldn't get Tom Hiddleston, but this was my second choice I presented to you. I said I was happy to get both. I feel that Richard Madden as an actor is someone that perfectly encapsulates what Bond is. It's obviously Daniel. They've went down the route with Daniel Craig that is more that kind of dark and gritty side of things, but still he has that kind of, you know, the gift of gab, the flirt, the seduction side of things. Should we save? But I feel that like Richard Madden will be able to bring it back to kind of what it was, because he's proven that he can play this kind of seduction and role and also that kind of espionage side of thing at the same time. Because obviously you've seen him as Prince Charming and Cinderella, and so he's got kind of that kind of aspect on tap. But then obviously, as I said, we've seen how good he is in like The Bodyguard and whatnot. I feel that there's something about him that I feel he just clicked perfectly, and I think also the fact that he's Scottish in the same time. Also, we know from Skyfall that's where like Bond was born and grew up. So like having that actual Scottish actor to play that, to go to the roots of what the role is, I feel it's a great selection. And also like age is on his side, and he's actively shown interest in wanting to do this role as well. So I feel that it'd be someone that you can kind of create that, not the exact same Daniel Craig storyline that's happened with the movies so far, but they could do something similar and have that continuity between a new set of films with Richard Madden again. So I think that's why I'd want him to be the next James Bond. And also he's a bloody good looking bloke, I'll tell you that.
Well, looks are very important, and as you said, he has all the characteristics of being a straight white male and very good at seducing women. What do you think, Stuart?
It's a really good pick. The Bodyguard essentially is, you know, is kind of the character's very much like James Bond. It's a really good pick, Jack. I have one question. You made the point about he's a Scottish actor. Obviously, Sean Connery was Scottish. Would Richard Madden keep his Scottish accent for the role?
Yes.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
That would
no
not
further questions.
Go down well either. No
Yes.
further questions, Your Honour.
Yes. He's done
it. Lewis, Adam, anything?
I don't really have much to add to that. I mean, it's a solid pick. I think it kind of continues on with the. Oh God, I really sound like I'm just dogging on Bond. I think it just continues the flawed nature of Bond. It doesn't improve it in any way. Richard Madden's a good actor, a good choice, and as Rocket Man featured twice in 2 episodes so far. But to me, it doesn't seem to. It's just not enough. It's just not enough of a change for my particular liking.
Well, take that, Jack. And Adam, anything to say?
No, I quite enjoyed it. I like the idea of another Scottish James Bond as well. So pleased with that. Also, just to quickly, has anyone ever read the Young Bond books here? Just I thought it's something I would have brought up earlier, but I think because we're talking about being Scottish, it's just anyone ever heard or read of them? Charlie Higson?
No.
Tom
No.
Holland to play Young Bond.
But I just they're very good books, and they actually do continue like his backstory of him being born in Scotland, etc. And I actually think that it's a good picture of Jack because it actually reminds me a lot of the character in the Young Bond books. I can see Richard Madden playing an older version of that character. So it's a good pitch, Jack. Nice one.
Wonderful, Jack. I mean, 2 out of the 3 panelists enjoyed it, so we'll go to the one who didn't enjoy it. Lewis, you said that Jack's one was uninspiring. You said it didn't really change much. Come to us then with your innovative idea. Tell us, who should be the next James Bond?
Uninspiring maybe is maybe a step too far, but
you said it was fucking shit. Jack was a dick.
My pick is not even original. It's the guy who's been called to do it for quite a lot of people. My pick is Idris Elba. My case for Idris is pretty simple. I've made it no secret I'm not a fan of James Bond. I don't enjoy the character. I find it inherently bland and flawed and still plays in some poorly aged conceptions of manliness. However, I do feel that Craig, they've kind of dialed up the good aspects, but dialed down the bad. Not perfectly, but enough for the general public to not ask too many questions. And I wanted to continue this and ramp it up. So while in the novels, the character is clearly defined as white, and the character is obviously an embellished sort of "I wish I was this guy" version of himself of the author Ian Fleming. So I do get the argument of, well, Bond was written white, so I get it. It's a fair argument, but characters evolve and change over time. And aside from prescribing some sense of authenticity from books written in the 50s, the idea of changing Bond from white to black, to me, isn't a big jump. But already aspects of the character are slowly being watered down, especially the sort of chauvinistic womanizer, toxic hero complex type, into a more modern, defined, well-rounded character rooted in a story arc rather than place to place, mission to mission, find hot girl, do mission, kill bad guy, bang woman, and move on. Although it's definitely still there. I mean, it's a Bond film. They have to kind of hit the tropes. I want to keep them going. So, given the modern setting, and as time moves and characters and aspects of reality change, and bringing a new face, literally, won't do any harm. And as a name, Idris is very well known and popular both internationally and locally in Britain, thanks to shows like Luther and movies like Thor, Avengers, Pacific Rim, Fast and Furious. Essentially, he's more than capable of carrying being part of a franchise, given his rather impressive experience. And more specifically for Idris, the positive aspects that I associate with Bond, the suave sophistication, the man for every occasion with a commanding presence and a sense of cool, is all kind of encapsulated in Idris. And the guys here know I'm a big fan of Idris as an actor. And should come no surprise, I'll toe this line until he's hired. But he can play those positive aspects, but still bring a vulnerability to the character and display a much more grounded version of Bond. I think as a screen presence, Idris can bring that depth of character and take away that kind of bland taste I've had following from some of the recent films. And finally, a lot of this is also dependent on like a writing screenplay adaptation. You know, the books are written and can be interpreted as per, especially the originals by Fleming. And since I think like 3 or 4 authors have taken over the character, but with appropriate writing and a skill and a modern new story arc span over a few films to focus on some of the personal nature of Bond, aka kind of letting us into him as an individual, I feel could really set the character on a new track for a short-term trilogy or maybe even just 2 films, and even close the book on Bond, and over those 2 films introduce someone else to replace the new idea of Bond. And my pick for that, shockerly, would actually be a woman too. But that's my case for Idris Elba.
Well, Lewis, if you wanted to offend every Bond fan ever, you have done so, but I actually enjoy it. Every time they're talking about who should be the next James Bond on social media, Idris Elba is always trending. So like you said earlier, I think this one will be popular with the fans at home. Stuart, what's your thoughts?
First of all, I love it. Idris Elba is obviously one of the names. Whenever the talk of who will be the next Bond, he's usually up there. He's definitely top 5, if not top 3. A great pitch, because I'm in your camp. Something has got to change. However, one thing I would ask, because I just want to ask you about this. You're saying about a modern setting. I'm assuming you mean present day. Daniel Craig, who I really enjoyed as Bond, even if I would have preferred Idris Elba to take over his tenure, because he is retiring at the age of 53. Idris Elba is currently 48 years old. Do you think, given the, shall we say, tentative nature of the Bond fans, do you think this is too old for a Bond?
No, I think the way that I see this film going, I see Idris being the curtain call for the film, and I don't mean that in a bad way, as in he's going to kill the franchise. I feel that he is the last one and will be the last Bond, because there will be no more Bond. I think, obviously, the age, you're only talking 3 years of a difference. It's not like Idris is some fragile old man. I mean, the guy had a pro Muay Thai kickboxing fight like 2 years ago. Like, he is athletic, he's capable of doing it. He did Fast and Furious, another couple of years ago as well. So like he's capable of doing it. He doesn't look like a decrepit old man, but he can definitely play that sort of like, you know, Bruce Willis Die Hard 4.0, where it's like, I'm too old for this shit sort of role. And that's where I see Bond going, and I do see it ending in the next 2 or 3 films, where it's time to move on to something else, because Bond's played his time out. Like, it's 60, 70 years now going on. Like, you know, I think it's time that Idris plays the sort of closing of the book.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer, Lewis.
Adam, you got anything to add to that?
No, I actually think it was quite well covered. I liked the idea of obviously Idris Elba handing the baton on, passing it on. It's something similar to my pitch, but I like that as well. That was good.
Interesting. And finally, Jack, Lewis said that your pitch was uninspiring bullshit. So have you got anything to say about that?
No, I don't.
I'm trying to start beef to get views, and you're just giving me nothing.
I'm not starting beef on irrelevancy. You know what I mean. That's not my thing. I thought
That's what I wanted to hear.
Idris Elba is a choice that we probably all expected to crop up on the show. I do think he'd be a good choice, but I think for the I don't see it going the direction you'd want to. Unfortunately, but I do a good choice for a Bond, but do I see it going down that route? I don't think so.
Just to be clear, I actually do agree with Jack. I 100% don't see Bond actually ever ending, and I don't think that they're going to listen to this podcast and go, you know what, that fucking guy had a great point. This is maybe something we should do. Like, absolutely not. This is where I'd want it to go, but I'm under no illusions that Bond's ever going to go away because money.
Well, not
Lewis,
if you call him a
right.
cunt, Lewis, on our podcast. Of course they're not going to take us seriously. You've tanked your own dreams.
Lewis, you're probably right. They're not going to listen to your pitch and be like, that's the way it should go. If any of us had said it, they might have done, but not your one. You're right. Well, not Jack's either, actually. He never gets voted for. And Adam, please tell me we've saved the best for last. Who should be the next James Bond?
Well, for me, it was an easy choice because you want him to be unemployed, and someone who's recently unemployed is Neil Lennon. No, that's not my real choice. And also, Alec, thanks for the suggestion. Anyway.
Great. The reaction
went really well. How do we kick some of the fucking podcast?
Everyone was muted. Yeah, it's all right, guys. Sorry.
I wasn't muted. I wasn't muted.
No, was
I said nothing. I looked at my screen.
Guys, sorry. Guys, come on. I don't want you to bash us. It's fine.
You know, Adam, just don't.
Right, moving on.
I mean,
right,
Jack said some bad takes recently, but Jesus.
Anyway.
Let's go.
Yeah, when I found out we were choosing next Bond, I was quite excited, mostly because it's actually an answer I came across. I decided a few years ago, and then I've just stuck with it. Nothing's changed my mind. And it's maybe a little left field. It's not to the maybe left field to the extent of some of the pitches we've heard, but my choice is Michael Fassbender. Now, we know he's a great actor. All the actors that everyone's chosen so far have been great. And I just think that he's someone who is shown the Bond characteristics that we all know and love, but I also think he's got the emotional side that we've seen a bit from Daniel Craig. And I think, as much as I like the breaking the mold suggestions from Stewart and Lewis, they're not. I think that if we're being honest about what the audience is going to accept, I think they would accept Idris Elba, to be fair, as the Bond. I think it would be too much for them. I think if we're being realistic, this is someone who could continue this sort of way of Bond being shown a bit more emotional, a bit more vulnerability, and then be capable, similar to Idris Elba, to pass on the baton to the next era. And then after Fassbender, if he sort of softens the way, it could be then a time for a much bigger pick. And we've seen him. I'm just going to quickly talk about a scene from Michael Fassbender. It's for me, it was the scene I saw, and it just made me know he was Bond. And it's in the film Inglourious Bastards by Quentin Tarantino. And thank you.
What a film.
And we're going to quickly sketch the scene. Fassbender plays an English lieutenant. He has to go undercover as a Nazi officer to meet an informant. Throughout the scene, he's speaking German. He's got to show his quick wit a few times as a Nazi officer. He's kind of questioning him. His accent's a bit strange. And he's quick. He's on the ball like you want James Bond to be. He's clever. He gets out of it. But toward the end, his cover's blown and he's got a gun pointed at him. And he's cool. And he realises it's gone tits up. He knows he's going to die. And his reaction and the line he delivers, I challenge anyone not to watch that and just go, that's James Bond right there. He's someone who encapsulates a bit of the old James Bond that we know and love, but he also could bring in the new era. We've seen his emotional side, in films like, actually in X-Men, he's played someone he's showed an emotional side in there. That's not even a role in Magneto where you think that was possible, but he really does. And I just think that as much as we've had some good choices today, I think if we're trying to keep it sort of semi-realistic, I think Michael Fassbender, realistic choice who could help herald a new era Bond in the future.
Adam, love the pitch, love the scene in Inglourious Bastards that you're talking about. My only criticism is you've said you want to keep it kind of more realistic and left field. But everyone else went for a British actor or actress, and you've gone for a German actor / actress in Germany. For the Bond fans at home who don't want black or female James Bond, I don't think they're going to be very happy with a German James Bond.
Well,
So
Irish
what's your thoughts
German.
on that?
I think he's Irish German. I think he's
he
shown
was
that
born in Germany.
Yeah, but he's shown that his accents are flawless, and honestly, I think that if anything, you could lean on that. This is not a massive departure. I think they're more likely to accept someone being German than they are to accept someone being a woman or someone being black. This is just being realistic with the fans. I think that's a small change they would accept. You don't have to lean into it in the film, but again, this is another step toward passing on to the new era of Bond that we might see in the future.
That's a good answer, and it was definitely made up on the spot. Lewis, what's your thoughts?
I don't have a problem with Adam's pitch. Like, as a pick, it's good. The way he puts it forward, it's good.
What's your thoughts, Stuart?
That's another really good pick by Adam. Great reasons for wanting Michael Fassbender. That scene in Glorious Bastards is on point. Like, it's fantastic as the role that he does there. I just feel I feel similarly to Lewis. Perhaps maybe not as blood vessel popping as much as he is feeling, but I get where you're coming from. But in this respect of like, oh well, the audience isn't going to accept it, so why bother? We'll make the next. But I promise we'll make the next Bond progressive and everything like that. I feel like that's a terrible way to go because it's just going to keep that. I think it's a reason why nothing's going to change unless you change it. Michael Fassbender is a fantastic actor. I'm sure he would. Do you know what? He's actually probably my pick for a good Bond villain, and not because he's German. But the whole thing of well, they're not going to accept it, so why even bother? Kind of spits in the face of equality and progress, because sometimes it might be the most vocal. Doesn't mean it's the majority that are angry about it. I think if you, again, the premise of having a different coloured actor or a different gendered actor playing James Bond on paper will upset people, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the acting that sells him on people. If you look at Daniel Craig, he's probably regarded as, maybe it's a recency bias like we talked about, but he's probably regarded as the best Bond, and nobody wanted him because he was blonde. People don't know what they want. People don't realise, the process of making films. They think it's easy and they think they know what they want, but all they want is the same because they enjoy what they know. They don't know what they would enjoy if it's different because they haven't experienced it yet. And I feel like, whilst we're only making pitches here and it's all hypothetical, I feel that's the way to go. You have to tell the audience, shut up, sit down and watch it, and then make the decision. Don't judge a book by its cover. Live it and understand it, and then make your decision.
Well,
Stuart, I just want to clarify that. Sorry, Adam. I just want to clarify that in no way, with my assessment of anyone's pitches, was I trying to suggest that we shouldn't have a black or female or even different nationality James Bond. I just want to clarify that right there.
No. It's nobody. It's nobody. I'm saying nobody in this podcast is not progressive, and this is all people's picks. It's just the whole concept of people aren't going to accept it, so why bother? I feel that's a very dangerous mindset to have, and it's probably a mindset all these fucking production companies have anyway. For all things can be progressive. I mean, Disney's known to be progressive, but they're only progressive because it makes them money. At the end of the day, I feel that these companies and everything like that and these movies need to be better, and they won't be better unless they take those steps.
Yeah, well, when we started at these pitches, I was choosing the next Bond, and now I'm Hitler. I feel like, but
just like whenever you say anything on Twitter, you become Hitler. So
yeah,
but
no, do you know what? Stu makes a great point. I think when I'm talking about heralding the next era of Bond, I just think Stuart's, he's hit the nail on the head a lot of his comments. I don't necessarily think that it's these ideas should just be abandoned. I think it's something that when you have someone like a character who people could a character who these the Bond fan these Bond fans are like, you could almost bring in the progression while he's still there. I think you could adopt some of the ideas that you brought in, Stuart, about the other agent, or like what Lewis suggested about another agent training underneath him. I think that because also in Big Fassbender's 43, he is a wee bit older. I think this is you could use this as a vessel for bringing in these new ideas, and then people will like them at that point. And then when you finally get round, and then maybe you've been grooming a character in these films to take over, it could be a lot more natural, and then it could be more well received. And then I think that could be a bigger progressive step than, because obviously when you do something, you break the mold. It's absolutely, I think it is the right thing to do, and it's what I think we would do if we were in charge. When you break the mold, you can turn a lot. Sorry, Rhys. I'm still talking. No. My bad. You can also turn a lot of people off these franchise stuff permanently, and then you can turn them away, and they'll say, well, James, never touching that. They've ruined it then. And I'm not saying we should try and appease these people, but I think these people will be more understanding, and they would actually have their ideas changed a wee bit if they watch something. If they watched a Bond, and then they've seen that, a young female person of colour coming in as an understudy, and then they start to like that character, and then when it comes around, they're like, why would I ever think a person of colour couldn't play Bond? Like, she's right there. That's who I want. And I think that that's just it. And I think all the methods we suggested, I think, are plausible ways, and I wouldn't be against any of them. But I think maybe this is just another strategy, another way to bring Bond forward into the 21st century.
Adam, I said earlier...
Rhys, I am speaking.
Well,
Adam,
sure, we've been going on for too long.
Adam, you talked me back. You talked me back.
I don't care.
You got my vote. You got my vote. Sorry, just continue.
I had said earlier, Adam, that the point you had made was on the spot and made up was because I don't think you had considered the fact that he wasn't British when you pitched him, and I think that's just reflective of how Bond could be changed, and it would be kind of seamless, because I think if you did pick Michael Fassbender, people wouldn't even notice that he wasn't British. So unless, Jack, you have anything to say, I think we will move on to the votes.
Nah. I don't have anything to say. I feel that we have our time to say things in the pitch, and if we continue with what's being said, it is what it is. I think we just get to where we need to be now.
I will say one thing.
No, you won't.
I will say one thing. Please just let me say this one thing.
Oh my God, we're going on for so long.
All I'll say is that equality feels like oppression to the privileged.
Thanks. Right, guys, send in your votes. So, while you're doing that, next week I'll let you know what's coming up, or the next episode. In the next episode, we are going to be discussing WandaVision. Who's hosting that one?
Stewart, take it away. What are we going to be talking about, and what is our pitch?
Well, as of recording, we have the finale of WandaVision tomorrow, and from there we will I think it's more like a season review. I don't know how the others are feeling. I don't know how possible it would be to pitch something for WandaVision. So if you have something you'd like to pitch about the series, then absolutely go with that. But I feel like it might be a better thing to pitch what happens next after the season. But yeah, generally this is going to be a review, everyone's thoughts on what happened, whether we liked it, whether we didn't. Does Rhys like Marvel? Was The Mandalorian better? Should you give Disney your money? These are all questions my lawyer has advised we don't ask on the episode, so I need to have a script ready. But yeah, next episode's WandaVision.
Wonderful. So it's kind of like the first Mandalorian episode where we pitched what we should do for the next season. That's exciting. I won't tell you right now what my thoughts are on WandaVision. I will definitely save that for the podcast. So we'll just get straight into the votes here. Adam and Jack, I'm afraid to say 0 votes.
Oh, go
I
figure.
don't know how it
Go
happened.
figure.
Well, that's what
Wow.
happens when you pick straight white males. People want change. Coming in with 1 vote is Lewis with Idris Elba. So the Big Picture podcast panelists, excluding me, are not quite ready yet for a black James Bond because we have gone for Stewart's pitch of Tom Hiddleston and Natalie Emanuel. Stuart, you're this week's Big Picture champion.
Thank you.
Don't all clap
Thank
at
you,
once,
Rhys.
guys.
What's my budget? Let's get it made.
Your budget is make a script for next week's podcast.
It's definitely
I
not
don't know if I
budget.
can do it.
Okay.
I don't know if this is more like a homework assignment, but
Yes, definitely.
I'll do my
budget,
best.
okay.
I think everyone had a really good pitch. We've talked about some heavy. I think this is a minefield that I think we've all really navigated really well. I messaged Rhys, and I will screenshot it in case Rhys deletes it. But I said I would vote for everybody's pitch because you all did a really good pitch. Bond is more than just a nationality as well, and I think that everybody argued the case really well. I would watch a movie of each of their Bonds.
Oh, shut up.
Wow.
Whoa! Maybe I'm not a racist, Jack. You ever think about that?
He was the only one to vote for the Idris Elba, Lewis's vote. So what you got to say about that, Jack and Adam? Actually, don't answer that because that's all we've got time for. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you in the next episode, which is WandaVision, in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.